Hey everyone, welcome back to a new episode of My Solo Chronicles. And of course, you already know who this is. This is April. And in today's third part of the four-part series, What's Your Why? You're going to hear an amazing story from Barbara, who used to have a cosmetic business. She was an entrepreneur. And her first time ever going out of her home state, she ended up going to New York by herself. And the story that she tells is absolutely fantastic, but it shows that she took a leap of courage and faith and stepped out and went to one of, I say, one of the best cities in the US. Of course, I would be partial to that because I used to live in New York. And it opened up her eyes to an array of many solo adventures and travels afterwards. So I hope that you not only get inspired by her story, I also hope that those of you who have your own business and who have hesitated about stepping out and really just trying to grow your business in ways that you never thought you could, I hope this definitely helps you. So sit back and enjoy Barb's What's Your Why? Barbara, I find your story just absolutely fascinating, but I want you to share with the listeners, why did you choose to do a solo outing? Like, where did you go and what prompted you to actually venture out of your comfort zone and do this solo outing?
Well, my first significant solo outing, I'll put it that way, was in 1978, and it was for a business startup. I wanted to start a cosmetic company. And the reason that I wanted to start a cosmetic company is because I had been teaching at a modeling school at two different schools, and they asked me to find a makeup line that would complement the Black students that were in the class. After starting the search for cosmetics, I realized that there were none that had the ingredients in it that I wanted and that I knew would be beneficial to darker skin. So I researched at the library. I did a lot of research because there was no internet at that time. And I spent most of my time in the library. Evenings, Saturdays, Sundays, whatever, I was there. I found manufacturers in New York. Actually, I found them all over the country, but I decided on the one in New York because they appeared to have the ingredient stack that I was looking for. So I never gave it a second thought that I would even be in the uh, classification of a solo traveler. I just knew that they had information that I needed and I planned on going. The interesting thing is that I had never flown before, I had never started a business before, I had never traveled alone anywhere um, at that time. So these topics never even crossed my mind. I just knew that they had it. I bought a ticket. They had the information that I wanted. I set up an appointment and I went. Now, the interesting thing is that I prepared as much as I thought I could. I researched, I made contacts, telephone contacts, several conversations, and did everything I could. You know, I researched the city. Everybody told me how dangerous New York was, and at that time, New York was different. It was dirty, grimy, gritty, and full of crime, and that's all you heard. Um, Times Square was a haven for prostitutes and drug sellers and all kinds of ne'er do wells. It was really, really nasty. You couldn't walk down the street without something getting stuck to your shoe. So that was probably the main concern that I had before I went. So, um, with that in mind, I said I had $500 in cash and I specifically took cash, and of course the business was transacted in cash. They didn't have a problem with that. In fact, they preferred it at that time. I thought I was being extra cautious by taking this wad of money and sticking it down in my undergarment. Um, and then I got to the appointment, forgot all about, I forgot all about where I had put the money. And when it was time to transact the business, oh my gosh, um, I didn't want to just reach under my skirt and pull out the money. And so I was trying to figure out a way. Um, and we were in an office space that had, I think, maybe two other desks in it. So we weren't in a private office where I could just, take the money out discreetly. So I finally stood up and I asked the lady, I said, um, my money is in my undergarments. Is there someplace I can go private to get the money? And, and so the lady just kind of looked at me real stern, like, haven't you ever conducted business before? And I was trying not to laugh, but I was also concerned. So she kind of looked over into the corner of the room and just stared at the corner. So I just politely went over to the corner. Now, here's the crazy part. I felt like George Costanza. Uh, I was facing the, I went over to face, I went over to retrieve the funds with my back. I turned my back to the lady and the rest of the room. But when I turned around, I realized that I was still kind of in the middle of the floor, going under my clothes. Right? I was a little bit embarrassed then, but just briefly, because I was cracking up. I was like, you idiot. I got the money, went back and sat at the desk like nothing had happened, gave the got my receipt, and I left, and I that's all I could think about the whole time. So sometimes the more that you plan, the you can't plan for everything. And that's one of the things that I remember from that experience is that, you've got to be flexible. You got to roll with whatever happens. um it it was just, in the back of my mind, I know she probably said, oh, she's never conducted business before, because you usually try to, on your first experience with things, sometimes you try to fake it till you make it. But that whole experience of having to get the money out of my undergarment was that was hilarious even now when I think about it. And the lady never changed her expression. She was like, we were handling some $1 million contract or something, and she was like kind of rolling her eyes inside her head. She didn't let me see her, but I knew, I just had the feeling that's what she was thinking. But it was a very enjoyable, a very pleasant experience, but I still had fun. There were so many other things that happened on the trip. I could probably write a book about it, and they're all hilarious. Well, the one thing I just want to say this is that this was also part of my preparation, is that I had a lunch buddy, that when I told him that I was going out of town, and he knew it was my first time, my very first solo experience. And so he said, well, you'll blend in as long as you don't start looking up at the buildings. And so I said, oh, yeah, that's right, because I just had this thing about architecture. So even in our hometown, no matter how many times we walked the same route, I would always be fascinated by the tops of the buildings and the whole cityscapes and things like that. So after I got there, I was walking down for the first time. I got settled in the hotel, left the hotel, and I was walking around, and and so I didn't take my camera because he also said that's a dead giveaway if you're taking pictures as you're walking, because nobody who lives there takes pictures of it. So I left my camera in the room, and I was walking around, just looking around and everything. So I came upon a couple of guys who were standing at a taxi cab stand, and there was the driver and I think two or three other guys, and they were leaning against the car just talking. And so I walked past, and they spoke, and I spoke. And so one left the group, and he came and followed after me and introduced himself. And we, had a little light chit chat as we were walking. And so he asked me where I was from. He asked if I lived there. And I said yes. And so and so we were walking and talking, and the conversation was really good, really friendly. My antenna was up, look for this, look for that, keep it public and separate and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going over all these safety precautions in my head. So we walked, I think, about maybe a half hour, and we ended up walking around Central Park. And so after we had talked for a while and walked for a little bit, I said, I'm not really from New York. I'm from out of town. And he said, yeah, I knew it. He said, by the way you were looking up at the tops of all the buildings. Like, that's what my friend told me not to do. But I was just having such a good time. And it was just so we had such the weather was perfect. We walked and we went to Tavern on the Green. He said, "You want to get something to eat?" And so I'm really getting suspicious now because no, you're not going to spend any money on me. So as we walked towards the restaurant, it was closed, and that was good. So we kept walking and talking. And by the time we had walked around the entire Central Park, um, he went into the florist, and the florist was standing outside, and they greeted each other. They knew each other. They talked a little bit, and he went in and got flowers and gave me a big bouquet of roses and everything. So we're still talking and everything, and so finally it was time to go. It was getting late, and um, so he walked me back to my hotel, and I reluctantly did. But when we got close to where it was like he knew everybody, and everybody around Central Park, all the stores, vendors, or whatever, everybody knew him. And so when he walked me, we were in the lobby of the hotel, and he said, "Tell this young lady that I'm a good guy. Tell this young lady that she's in good hands." And he said, "Oh yeah, yeah, he's a good guy," so on and so forth and everything. And so um, I had already asked him for his driver's license and his social security number, asked him where he worked and all that, and he gave me copies. He gave me um, uh, not a copy. I think I wrote down the social security number, but he gave me I must have written this. Gosh, it's been so long. I know I had the information from his job. He said he worked part time for CBS doing some commercials, and the way he looked, that was plausible. And so he gave me all his information. So I get back home, and after about a month, I think I said, let me give him a call and see how he's doing, make a little connection or whatever. And I called every number that he gave me, and nobody knew him.
Oh,
And I was like, now wait a minute. Everybody around that we met knew him. Um, his and of course I checked a whole lot of other information and things. Nothing panned out. And I was like, oh my God. I said, I cannot tell my mom. She would have a fit. You know better than this. So that was quite an experience. But I tell you, he was such good company. He was telling me all about the city, and we laughed and we talked and everything. So I say that to say again, you can be as careful as possible. Now, of course, in this day, there's a lot more. It's a lot easier to check people out, but with a lot of the things that we hear about what's going on in society now, oh my goodness, that would make me not ever want to travel solo again. But I made several trips to New York, Chicago, wherever I could chase down the proper ingredients for my foundation. That was the main focus of the trip, of the whole uh, project, trying to find something that did not have a particular ingredient in it that was not a good thing for African American skin. So that was an experience that I will never ever forget.
Once you experienced New York in a way that you probably never thought you would experience New York, and you were able to come back to your home state, what changed after that first solo experience?
What changed after? Not much, because I'm always careful, always um, I what I do check and double check is where my ticket is, and those kinds of things, and making sure that I'm on time, and so I won't be rushed and hurried for my appointments. But nothing really changed. I was never I never really liked to travel, period, unless it was a road trip. I like road trips, but I've even done solo road trips now that I think about it. So no, that I was in my groove. I was in my groove then.
I always say New York is such a huge city. And if you want to conquer your fears, New York is the place that's going to help you definitely do it, because it's on a whole other level that's different from any other place within the US. And I know that you said that in the beginning you were like, oh my gosh, I'm here in this big city by myself. But what scared you the most during that time? And how did you get over that fear?
Okay, that didn't really scare me. It kind of um, made me a little bit more reflective about the whole experience. Um, what you know, what I could have done differently, and I tell you, and I wouldn't have done anything differently because there were no red flags, and I kept myself safe. I kept a safe distance. I was, still my antenna was still up, as far as looking out for things or listening to trigger words and things like that, and none of that happened. So I don't think I'd ever run into that again. But I knew that I was on a mission to secure the proper product for my product line, and that was that. I traveled a lot after that. I've traveled on the train, making day trips to Chicago and flying to Chicago and flying back and forth to New York. So the only reason I wouldn't do it now is primarily because I feel safer traveling with a companion because I'm getting up in age, and I might end up throwing my ticket in the trash or something like that and not being able to get back home. So, but yes,
As we wrap up, what piece of advice would you give others, especially those who have their own business and, of course, may have to travel out of their city to go to where the product is or the design is? What would be your advice to those individuals or just people in general?
I just advise you that when you are getting ready to go someplace, do your research, of course. Uh, talk to friends or other people who've gone where you want to go, and at that point, you just have to just settle in and just be prepared for the uneventful events that the unplanned events and scenarios that you may run into. I've eaten out by myself and gone to other events by myself. I just, I just, I've always just had this confidence in myself that I, whatever I wanted to do, when it came to something like that, I just did it. I Once you get over the notion that people are going to be staring at you, because a lot of times that's what goes across some people's mind is that you know uh, what people will think. Some people may think, oh, she's alone, or um, or she's sad or broken up about something, or they're just looking at me or staring at me, and I just say, so what? So, just always, just as anytime you go out in public, you want to make sure that you're looking your best. No bonnets, of course. And then bonnets weren't the thing then, no pajamas, nothing that you would sleep in should be on the outside, no rollers in your hair, things like that. And not just because I'm coming from a beauty and charm background about those types of things. It's just that that's just the way that women were groomed um, and trained to present themselves in public, and that's something that's lost now. And I think that should be something that's taught again and retaught. But I just say, just uh, make sure you wash your face, brush your teeth, comb your hair, and put on a nice clean set of clothes and go for it. And if people are staring at you, they could be saying, "Oh my goodness, she is so courageous. I could never do that myself." Or they could be saying, "Oh, they are so beautiful. You're so graceful." They could be saying things like that. So don't think the worst. Just get out and do it and have fun.
And there you have it, Barbara's why. In order for her cosmetic business to thrive and move forward, she knew that she had to move forward and step out of her comfort zone and head to a place that she had never been to before, but that held like the key to everything she needed in order for that business to thrive. And as you heard, it actually opened up her eyes and showed her that, hey, the sky's the limit. You can do anything you set your mind to. And she has done that. So I hope that by listening to her story, especially again, if you're an entrepreneur with your own business, it inspires you to just step out there and do your thing, like Barb has done her thing. In the meantime, my moonbeams, as I always say, enjoy the rest of your day, and I will talk to you in the next episode. Bye.